If you've got an E60, I'm sure there's other models that this applies to as well. You've got either the AC set full blast and you're getting maybe hot air out of one, cold air out of the other, or maybe your side vents, for example, or maybe the rear vents, you've got, hot air coming out when it should be cold. Or in the wintertime, maybe you've got warm air coming out and it takes forever to heat up as opposed to hot air. What you need to do first of all is get yourself a scanner, not one of the cheap Bluetooth ones. It probably won't tell you, like the cheap $10 ones. I've got an MX808 here. I've already logged into the car. Let's just do a quick auto scan on it to get some information. But essentially what we're looking for is these climate control units. They've got a chip in them that typically fails after, however long. So there are failures known to them. So essentially get yourself a scan tool, scan the vehicle, and we're looking for any errors with the heater control module or heater control unit, miscommunication, lack of communication, that type of thing. And if you find it, then you need to remove this and investigate what could potentially be going on with your heater control unit. So let's take a look. So essentially, to get it off, you take a plastic pry tool, and you can, on the corner, actually it's easiest if you open the doors, and here you get your plastic pry tool and just start prying this off gently. This will remove. You've got your lock unlock and four-way flasher that you'll need to undo the connection to, and then this whole piece comes out completely. The next thing that you'll do is you'll get your pry tool in there again, and you'll start prying out the whole unit. This whole thing comes out as one. As you're prying it out, once you get it back a good enough distance, there's two screws. I believe they're Phillips screws on here. Actually, once you remove this, there's Phillips screws, so remove the two Phillips screws. But once you pull this back far enough, there are Torx screws holding in the heater control unit. I forget what they are. I mean, if you've got a Torx set, just put on a few different Torx bits till you get them out. Just two screws holding it in. Once you remove those screws, you should be able to take this out of the plastic housing, no problem. Again, you might struggle a little bit. You'll have to pry down here as well to pull this whole unit out enough to undo that. So let's get our unit out and we'll bring it inside to dissect what's going on. Okay, so now that we got it out of the car, there's going to be one screw, whoops, a Torx screw right there, deep down in, so you need to undo that first, and then start to, there's clips on both sides, clip. Some of them might be broken on yours if someone's already tried to repair it. So again, we're going to remove that screw first, and then we'll start removing the clips. Okay, so we got the Torx out, little teeny weeny Torx. So we got that out, got this apart. Usually there shouldn't be any problems with the screen or the controls. If there are, you can inspect this. I'm gonna put that to the side for now. What we're interested in is getting the board out, which you just pull out, just slides out. Okay. So there's the board out. Now, the area that we are going to want to focus in, I'll just move this case out of the way, is right here. Now the chip that was in mine, I've already replaced it, and I'll show you I'll replace this other one here, but this is the chip that I removed. You can see it is burnt to high hell, and I've already put a new chip in, but we're going to take that one out just for the video, and we'll put some new chips in so you can see what that looks like. So we've got some new chips right here. Bought these from AliExpress. I think I got a pack of 5. 1, 2, 3, yeah, 5. I bought them for $15, $12, something like that, for the pack of 5. Just so that you are aware, these are the, whoops, it's upside down. These are the VND 830 chips. So again, this one, clearly, I mean, you can see the burn mark, like if I point it out so that everyone can see. Right there, that's just burnt to high hell. So we're going to use a hot air gun. We're going to desolder the chip, and we're going to put one of these new ones in its place. All right, for hot air soldering, I've got this Chinesium 858D. If you are going to buy one of these for like 30 bucks or whatever, 50 bucks, whatever they are now on AliExpress or Amazon, be aware that the hot and neutral lines are reversed. So before even plugging it in, open it up, reverse those lines. The chassis is not grounded, so go ahead, run a grounding strap. There's a couple people in the reviews that you'll see that. Right now we've got the temperature set to, I need to turn it on. I think I've got it set to 400. Yeah, 400. I'm going to put the airflow down around 35%, and we'll see how that works. I'll show you what we're doing. All right, first what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of flux on the feet. I don't have a fancy microscope for you guys to look at, but the flux that I'm using is the Chinesium one, NC 559 ASM. Let's now desolder the chip. So essentially what I'm going to do, it's going to be a little tricky here. I might have to put the phone down, but I'm going to be holding the chip with tweezers. Holding the chip with tweezers. And at the same time, I'm going to use my hot air gun. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first of all, heat up the area, and then come right in and heat up each of the feet or the pads. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so you can see the chip is off. A couple things to note. I had to bump the airflow up to about, I don't know, 45% maybe. So right now we're going to clean up the pads. A couple of the pads don't really have a lot of solder on it, so I'm going to take some copper wick or desoldering wick here. I'm going to wick up the solder that is remaining, and then we're going to resolder the pads. We'll take our new chip, and we will I'll probably actually use the iron. I'll use the iron just to touch the feet of the new chip and get it soldered in place. So again, I'm going to clean up the solder that's on there, put some more flux on, put some more solder on to resolder the feet and the pads, and then put the chip on. Okay, so the feet are pretty much cleaned off. What we're going to do is we're going to put more flux on, and then we're going to re-tin those feet with the soldering iron. We're not going to use hot air for this. So we're just going to flux the pads, and then again we're just going to tin them. So essentially for tinning, all you do is you put some solder on your iron, run your iron across the pads, and make sure that they have uniform amounts of solder on each of them. If any of them end up connecting or joining, just use some of your copper wire wick or desoldering wick to remove it and start over again. You've put too much solder on, so just keep going, keep trying again. I will be back with you once we have all the pads soldered. All right, so each of the pads have now been soldered. So you've got a little bit of solder on each of the pads. You want to make sure that none of the pads connect to each other. If any of your pads have connected to each other, hit them again with your soldering iron. If you've got way too much solder on it, then you'll have to use your solder wick to wick it back up and start over again. I've already wiped this down with alcohol to clean it off. Now we're going to be using a new chip here. Your new chip, you want to make sure that the little dot is in the bottom left. What do I mean by bottom left? So align that dot up in this bottom left corner. I guess dot to dot is how you can think of it. Yeah, dot to dot. If you have a different type of unit than this one, obviously look at your pinout, look at the schematics or the data set of the chip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the chip right on the pads. I'm going to align it as best as possible. We're going to put some flux on each of the pins, and then I'm going to use my soldering iron. We're just going to tap each of them while we hold the chip firmly down with our tweezers. And there we have it. So we've got our chip, our new chip, soldered in. What we're going to do now, and P.S. if your visibility is quite poor, you might want to use a magnifying glass or a microscope if you have access to one. But what we're going to do now is we're going to test that each of the little pins is firmly soldered. So we're just going to push, 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 push them all on both sides to make sure that they're firmly soldered in. And if you see any movement on either side or on either pins, touch them again with your soldering iron. And again, if you have a magnifying glass or a microscope, which I do, and I'm going to examine this after, make sure that none of the pins are touching or connected through a solder joint. And that's it. Reassemble, put back together, and you should have full AC and full heat. Thanks for watching.